Nobody wants to be brought to the governor. Everyone has heard the tales of brutality, his ruling as if we are under military law. But if you've done nothing wrong, you have nothing to fear, have you? Speak truth and what harm can befall you. Government House is not as we might expect. It is more like a fort than a home. Here are plain walls, unpolished floors, shutters kept open even at the peak of day so that blinding white oblongs appear on the wall's bluish plaster. Perhaps this is the way the governor likes it. Perhaps he knows nothing different, no other way of behaving. Perhaps it makes him think like a soldier. A functional wood desk, its joints aching in the heat. A chair which bends in similar protest. A man in stiff collar and heavy coat is not used to humidity and it makes him irritable, but it would not occur to him to remove the collar or wear something lighter. He has been here 4 years and would not admit that he still struggles in the temperature. Never reveal a fault or a weakness. Threads would unravel, possibly to the point of anarchy.
My father was always at his most energised in the first months after a move, and these were the best times for our family. Dad was happy then, his most inspiring self, full of ideas and rushing off morning to night. To my sisters and I, he appeared dashing in more senses than one. He was taller and younger than other priests we knew, with dark, almost black hair, and the kind of looks that reminded us of film stars in the Dirk Bogarde mould. At supper he would say, "What a perfect parish he had, what a wonderful house. We didn't know how lucky we were." 9 months, my mother told me later. That's how long it used to last. It was she who bore the labour of looking after the cavernous rectories and vicarages that came with the churches. If my father was around, we would more often hear him than see him, the swift flip-flap of his black cassock beating like a wing through the house as he flew in and out, or made a beeline for the study, his refuge from family and parish life.
But for now, at least, these second homes were just empty husks that served to provide the promise of rural tranquility. The simple fact that they were rarely visited showed that their general purpose was to provide some sort of reassurance that if, in the event that the metropolitan strongholds got too much, it was theoretically possible to get away. These homes provided knowledge rather than shelter. A knowledge that another place was owned and boxed off in advance of any occasion that it might be used. Second home owners didn't need to physically visit these places, they just needed to remember them. George wondered how long it took for these people to warm up to their new surroundings. During her short stays, she could never make these second homes homely exactly. They simply served as rest stops and places where she could curl back into her dreams. In that sense, both she and these ghost-like owners had the same relationship with those stone buildings. They existed as myths.
March 1846. The stable looms across the garden. Tom had always said it looked like some beast squatting in the corner of the courtyard. "You'll be happier here," the steward says. Tom says nothing. He realises that he is being moved because he is different. "It is more your place. The breath from both men curls around them, the cold biting their cheeks. Tom had already been sent to the very top of the house. The heat from the fires had barely made it up there, but for the master that had not been enough. "Send him to the Sable," he had said. "There's no heating out there," the steward reminded the man in front of him. The lord had simply stared and then turned his gaze onto the paper he was reading. Bowing slightly and taking a step backwards, the steward had spun and walked out. He had considered asking someone else to take the man, but he felt it was his job. Their shoes crunch on the stone chippings on the yard, and the steward wonders at the man's chances. If only he had not been so vocal. Everyone contained a little eccentricity. Although his father had always told him, only the rich were eccentric, the poor were mad.
Above Reese's head, above Reese's dreams, something stirred. The upstairs rooms were mostly bare. An old wooden frame chair, some redundant display boards, weather-worn, vandalised, fostering mould in a corner. Whitewashed walls grimly holding on to their plaster. Floor and ceilings, bare timber both, having long lost their paint. Above these two rooms was the attic, where nothing living would go. "The joists are too weak," Reese would say. And yet there was movement up there, a creak as the ancient timbers flexed, a thump as an empty suitcase discarded when the house was still the centre of a farm toppled from its rest. Something moved. Something as old as life itself swept the hair from its eyes and looked around the cage that held this realm. A task had to be performed. It was needed, inevitable, and not a pleasant one. A rite of passing, air bent and time folded.